Hey everyone. So today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is legends of American witches. Now, I'm not talking about Silver Ravenwolf or Laura Cabot or people like that. I'm not talking about modern day witches. I'm talking about the witches from the past. So during the times where our ancestors were coming to the United States. And yeah, so let's get started. The first witch that I want to talk about was a woman by the name of Moll Dyer. She was a woman who lived in Leonardtown, Maryland in the late 1600s. This is kind of a story that hits close to home to me, literally. I was actually born in Leonardtown, Maryland, and I was raised in Mechanicsville, which is about, 5 to 10 miles from Leonardtown. So this was a legend that I heard quite often growing up, and especially in high school. There is a road in Leonardtown. I believe it's called Moll Dyer Road. I don't know. But it's believed to have been the road that her house stood on back in the 1600s. And her house is no longer there, but the story is a really sad one, in my opinion. She was an elderly woman who lived by herself in those times and was thought to have been a hag. She was rumored to be involved in black magic or witchcraft. One of the coldest winters of the late 1600s in 1697, she was basically run out of her home by a crowd of people. They came to her home with, I'm sure, pitchforks and, flaming whatever, and were accusing her for the awful winter that they were having, and that their crops would be destroyed, or that they wouldn't, they were, whatever, they were struggling. There was sickness, and so, they, for whatever reason, had to blame it on somebody, and so they blamed it on poor Moll Dyer. So this old lady was ran out of her home by this crowd of people. She knew that if she didn't leave, that she would probably be killed, or her, burnt along with her home. So she left, and in the dead of winter, she walked through the woods and ended up passing away, probably died of hypothermia because it was so cold. And the legend has it that she was found laying frozen on this rock. Now, this rock is actually still around. It's a good-sized rock, and it sits in front of the Historical Society in Leonardtown, Maryland, to this day. And it's known as Moll Dyer Rock. And a lot of people say that when they visit the rock, when they get near it, that they get a sick feeling, or it makes them sick. There's a lot of folklore and kind of funky stories going around about the rock. In my opinion, I don't really believe that Moll was a witch per se. I think she was just kind of another victim of the, the witch hunts from back in the day. So it really is a sad story, but one that circulates in Maryland in modern times. A lot of people know about the story, but if you didn't live in Maryland, you might not have ever heard of her, really. So that's an interesting one. So the next group of witches that I wanted to talk about is the infamous Salem witches. Everyone knows these stories. Basically, there was a group of people accused of being witches was this in the 1600s? Let me check on that. Hold on. Yeah, anyway. They were accused of being witches, just as poor Moll Dyer had been. Many of them were executed, tortured, tried and tortured and let go if you, I guess, could either prove that you weren't a witch or just admitted to being one. But, anywho, where am I going with this? Okay, so my theory on the whole Salem witch thing, I believe in the theory that it was actually a side effect of ergot poisoning. And basically what this was what ergot poisoning is I think it's like fungus. It's when fungus grows on rye bread, and a side effect of it can be hallucinations. It sort of turns into like a hallucinogenic drug like LSD. So, yeah. So this occurrence, coupled with the strange stories of these women flying on brooms, told by Tituba, the townsfolk went into a rampage and, killed off a bunch of people. I don't want to go in a lot of detail about the Salem witches. Most of you guys already know most of those stories, so let's just move on. So the next legend I'm going to talk about is one of the poltergeist witch, and this is the Bell Witch from Tennessee. Now, I don't even know, everyone knows the story as the Bell Witch, but to me, I consider it more of a poltergeist story. To break it down into a nutshell, or put it in a nutshell, there was a man, I think his name was John Bell, who lived in Tennessee with his family, who began to be haunted by this poltergeist, this spirit of sorts. And this spirit tormented them so badly that Mr. John Bell ended up dying. He was basically poisoned by the spirit. There's a lot to that story. If you don't know a lot about it, please look it up. I'll post a link to my article below, so if you want to read more about it, you can. But it is really interesting. They heard this woman's voice, who wasn't a real woman in the house, for years. She would torment this poor family, I'm sure just until about they went crazy. She wouldn't even let one of the daughters get married. Like, she ran off the fiance or whatever, scared him so bad. Isn't that awful? But people believe that it was actually a woman in the town, a witch, who was causing this sort of haunting to happen because she was pissed off at John Bell for taking a part of her land or something to that effect. To this day, people still visit the land where the Bell Witch story happened. Basically, I know I'm stumbling over my words pretty bad here. One of the presidents, actually Andrew Jackson, came to investigate this story because so many people were talking about it. So many witnesses had actually gone to the Bell Farm and heard these disembodied voices and experienced this poltergeist activity that the president actually went to go check it out. And I believe he was ran off before he could even get there. Somebody's messing with me. So, yeah, that's another big legend in America of a witch, but really what I consider a poltergeist. Who knows? We don't really know. So have you ever seen that cheesy horror film, The Blair Witch Project? Well, that movie was definitely a fake and staged, but I can tell you that it's based on some pretty creepy legends and documented happenings circulating around the town of Burkittsville, Maryland. And these legends have sort of been circulating since the 1800s. And I'm just going to read you a bit about her. One story involves a little girl about the age of 10 that was pulled into the creek by a ghostly white hand, never to be seen again. Reportedly, someone heard the girl scream and saw a white hand reach for her from within the river at the little girl's side. The girl went into the icy cold river, assumingly was drowned, and her tiny body was never recovered. Immediately following the girl's watery disappearance, the creek was mysteriously filled with oiled up bundles of sticks. Yeah, I have no clue whether the sticks were related to this little girl's death, but creepy nevertheless. Then, in the year of 1886, Robin Weaver went missing and later claimed to have followed a person who was floating in the air into an abandoned house in the woods of Burkittsville. A search party was sent out in search for the missing Robin. The search party to later totally disappear at the same time that Robin surprisingly pops back into his worried family's home. Oh, it was a he. Anyway. Later, someone supposedly stumbled upon this search party's disemboweled bodies lying on Coffin Rock. Now, a lot of people and places online claim that Coffin Rock is a made-up location within Burkittsville. The wind is like playing games with me today. I'm creeping myself out talking about this stuff. But many of the town's residents claim to know the way to the infamous Bloody Rock. So, is there a witch in Burkittsville? I don't know. Is it the Blair Witch? Probably not. Probably just more ghostly happenings that people like to blame on witches. So, now, another witchy legend. This is actually a Floridian legend by the name of Wickademus. There's a legend in Florida known as the Legend of Wickademus' Grave. The story goes that a young teenage girl was accused of practicing witchcraft in a town near Fernandino, Florida. This supposedly happened back in the 1700s, though this area of Florida was not exactly settled at that point. So there's some inconsistencies as far as the legends go. However, the tale is one that frightens Florida's youth and keeps the high school students near the spot of her grave from traipsing off during school hours. Basically, the belief is that Wickademus was a woman who lost her life due to her craft practices, and then she was buried in a part of the woods behind the Fernandino High School. Kids go exploring there and search for her grave and have had many frightening experiences. Some kids claim that they were held in place by an invisible force, something that was not physically manifested but was so powerful that they were all literally frozen in place. Others say that the wooded area was a meeting place for witches back in the 1700s, and this is the reason for the mysterious and ominous events surrounding the forest. They always want to blame a witch, don't they? It's always a witch's fault. Blame it on the witch. Bad winter. Crops are going bad. People are sick. Let's blame it on the witch. Anyway, so that's my little video for you guys about American witches and legends of them. Hope you enjoyed.